Hi, Mr. Driscoll. My name is Anna, as you already know. I've always liked giving presentations because I am an outgoing person and I like to talk a lot. In this class, I gave 3 presentations. I think my best oral and visual presentation is the one I gave about genetically modified foods, and I think the best electronic communication presentation I gave was this one that I'm giving to you right now. So the presentation that best reflects my oral presentation was the Assignment 5 presentation about genetically modified foods. I think this because I was very interested in this topic because I got to choose it, so I had a fun time making the presentation and coming up with all the information that I was going to present to you and our classmates. The time requirement for this presentation was about 5 to 7 minutes, and my presentation was actually 8.5 minutes. So if I had to go back and redo this presentation again, I would probably practice it a lot more in front of other people out loud so that I could stay within the time requirement. I also know that I didn't practice this presentation quite enough because I said a few too many times, which was a comment that you made and a comment that one of the classmates that evaluated me had made. So then going along with this, my best visual presentation was also the Assignment 5 presentation about genetically modified foods. The visuals that I chose for this presentation complemented the information that I talked about very well. I started the presentation with the hook that about 75% of the processed foods on supermarket shelves, from soda to soup and crackers to condiments, contain genetically modified foods. I then showed this picture, which is the top 10 genetically modified foods, and asked people in our class if they had ever had any of these foods before. Later in my presentation, I talked about the advantages and the disadvantages of genetically modified foods. One of the disadvantages of genetically modified foods was the crossbreeding between crops and weeds, which then created super weeds. So then I showed this picture because a lot of U.S. farms now contain super weeds because they're become resistant to the herbicides. Then the last picture that I was going to say that I thought was very effective was the slide about the nutrition facts. So I talked about a way to contact the FDA to get them to like my solution was to contact them since they're already going through a label change process. This right here is the current label that we have. And this is the label that the FDA has changed. I said that the FDA is changing the serving size requirements and the design of the label, so I think that this picture was an effective choice so my audience would know exactly what changes were going to be made. Lastly, I chose a very basic slide design for my presentation because I wanted to bring attention to the information and the figures that I chose for the presentation. But looking back on it, the color scheme for the slide design I chose was gray on top and then had bullet points that were like a pinkish, reddish, orange. And if I went back and redid this presentation, I probably would have chose a slide design that had more bright, bold colors. I don't think that having these bright, bold colors would take away from the information and the figures on the slides. I just think it would make the presentation more visually appealing to look at because I actually don't think it was as visually appealing as I thought it would initially be. And then, so last to be for the E, my best electronic communication presentation was this video I made for you. Before making this presentation, I never knew how to use this video button on the top of my computer. And also through making this presentation, I found out there was an iMovie app on my Mac. Through using this app, I've learned how to create this video for you, along with using the editing menu to create themes and titles. So the title I made for this slide and the theme of the picture album as it's going through at the beginning was something that I made. I think that this will help me in the future if I ever have to make another presentation. One thing I think I could have done better was to explore more of the editing features, but I guess that's just something that will come along with more experience and in the future if I ever have to do this again. So overall, I think I've improved my skills in this class, both as a writer and as an oral speaker. I've even learned how to make this video, which I think is pretty cool. I will take these skills with me throughout life, and I know I will be more prepared for presentations in the future. So thank you for a great semester, Mr. Driscoll.